Welcome to the B-Sides and Beers podcast.
All right, guys, what are we drinking this evening? Dane?
I've got my Roche in Kleintje Grosch.
You're a big fan of the Grosch. Nice. Flip.
I'm going American tonight.
America.
Fuck yeah.
Woo! Miller.
Genuine
Genuine
Draft.
Draft.
MGD.
There we go. And we've got some Bad Tattoo Brewing Company. It is a New England IPA. It's pretty awesome. It's the first time I've had it. It is brewed in, the hell is this brewed? Penticton? Is that what it is?
That's interesting.
Yeah,
East Coast
Penticton.
IPA brewed in the West Coast, where IPAs tend to be a little bit more piney
Yup.
as far as the hops.
Yes. Hoppy. Yeah. No, it's good.
This is
Chilliwack Molson.
Chilliwack Molson Brewery right here.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I don't I don't know if Corey Hart's gonna be like reaching into. He feels like a buzz on his phone. I'm like, oh fuck, someone's talking.
It was
about me.
episode 1, man. He fucking knew.
Well, come on. I mean, how many podcasts are Corey Hart centered these days? I mean, he can't have that many that somebody talks about him. I don't know. I think that'd be cool.
He's probably
That was
still
Corey Hart.
huge.
Yeah,
Maybe.
in Moldova.
In Moldova.
Big in Germany, always.
I'm big in Germany.
Yep.
Big in Japan.
Oh
yeah.
man, I just heard this for the first time. The Hassel Castle. who lives in the Hassel Castle? You
It's all
got
about
it.
the
David
Hog.
Hasselhoff? Yeah,
That guy's big in Germany.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, huge. Massive.
Yeah, we're doing. Yes, let's do.
We're talking about Purple Rain, now, yes?
Soundtrack to the movie and, Prince and the Revolution. Yeah, very first album where he added
Absolutely.
and the Revolution. So
Yeah, man, this is my pick. I tried to think of albums like soundtracks that were solid from beginning to end. And
Yep.
I find that there's lots of soundtracks out there where there's a couple skips in there for me.
there was nothing on there.
But Purple
Yep.
Rain's a non-skipper for me. And again,
Mhm.
nothing that you want to skip unless you get bored
Mhm.
of Purple Rain, which I can see. But other than that, it is a solid front to back, no question about it. And again, honorable mention to The Crow. Honorable mention also for myself to the Dumb and Dumber soundtrack.
Yes.
If you guys had ever listened to the Dumb and Dumber
Many
soundtrack,
times.
that's up there
Yep.
for me. Yeah. But again, there's a couple skips on there for me too. But at any rate,
Right.
yeah, this is kind of like my first like intro to Prince, almost, but not really at the same time. I think the first time I heard Prince was on the Batman soundtrack.
88,
Yes.
yeah.
And-
and that came after. So
Yeah, that was like 88, right?
yeah.
So
89.
yeah,
89.
89. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
So I remember going to that movie. Like my parents took me to that movie for my birthday, and I was like 9 years old, right? So that was awesome. Going to see Batman.
I've seen the
And I
future
remember
and it
hearing
will be.
Prince. Yeah,
I've seen the future
right?
and it works.
And I remember
Yep.
seeing Prince, and I'm like, "Who is this guy?"
Yep.
Like, and I remember hearing that, and I remember my parents being like, "This is garbage.
He's a fake Michael Jackson.
Like, you are not
Oh,
listening
man.
to Prince. He
Yep.
is garbage." So I was like, "All right, well, yeah."
No,
like
I-
he
I-
was just like,
or as Lemmy would say about Prince, I've already seen Jimi Hendrix.
Oh,
yeah. So I don't know. It was kind of banned Like I was not allowed to buy
Why?
that Batman album. I remember seeing
Was it
people.
because he was super
I don't know, man.
flamboyant? And
I think it was
and
like probably like highly
Very.
sexualized music. Obviously, like that probably had something to do with it, right? So
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
You were 8 years old when that shit came out. You don't,
yeah. I
Yeah.
guess when I think about it, okay,
8,
so
9
you
years
said
old.
1989. I'm like, okay, I have an 8-year-old going on 9 years old in August. So would I want her
Yeah, probably
listening to
not.
Computer Blue and Darling Nikki?
especially Darling
Probably
Nikki.
not.
Give it a couple more years.
But at the time, I'm like, what? Like, this is, you took me to Batman. You
Yep.
took me to this movie. Like,
Yeah.
what? I'm just examining the music that was inside of it. So, anyways,
Yeah.
I
And there was nothing on that album that stood out as being offensive.
no, I don't think there's
At all.
anything highly sexualized on that album, but I think that they probably
Come on,
knew
you got
about
the
Purple
bad
Rain.
dance and
Yeah.
trust.
Prince
Party-
had the
party
first
man, come on.
parental advisory
Party man.
sticker put on Purple Rain, actually. So he was already sort of condemned as being,
Yeah.
not appropriate for the younger age. So
Bad.
too much for much.
Too much,
much
for
for
much.
Mike.
Too much for much, yeah.
That's what your parents were saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Banned. And I mean, now again, looking back at it, when we do the math on that, it makes sense. But at the time, it was
Mom
like
and Dad, this is
devastating,
bullshit.
right? So yeah. So I didn't really go back until later when I finally managed to get a hold of the Batman album somehow. I don't even know how I got it. And then I went backwards, and then I went to Purple Rain. And then that's when I
Yep.
was like, this was a movie too? Like, this is a whole movie. I didn't even know that too, right? So just going backwards on all of it, and then watching the movie for the first time. And I've only seen Purple Rain probably like 3 times.
Handful
Like,
of times.
yeah, like max. And I haven't seen it probably in like 5-7 years. Like, it's been a while, right? But
Yeah.
I remember pretty fondly, but it kind of feels like one of those movies you see it and you probably don't need to see it too many other times after that. unless you're,
Right. Super fan.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I again, just digging into some of this research on this, and you guys can chime in here too.
Mhm.
Stop me on some stuff, but like, first things first, this guy comes in with 100 songs ready to go
Yep.
for Purple Rain. 100 tracks, and I'm like thinking in my brain about writing 100 songs and just coming in and be like, here they all are. Like,
Yep.
100 blows my mind.
And
Like, I think that kind of shows you some of the musical genius that Prince was, to be able to come with that much
Well,
material, right?
the crazy thing about Prince, really, for the most part, is the amount of material that he didn't release. It has to dwarf what he did release.
Yeah.
and
like-
a hell of a drug.
He's a hell of a
boys.
drug.
And then he comes with 100 songs, and like When Doves Cry is not
Yep.
on that list,
Yeah.
right? So he's like, we're really scared that like this album and this movie is going to flop. Can you go write a track, and we are going to put movie clips to
Mhm.
it before
Yep.
the movie even comes out to promote it? And he comes back with When Doves Cry and lays it down on this synthesizer, and they're like, yeah, that's cool, we'll put that on there, and makes it on the album, obviously, and the rest is history. But just, I can't imagine coming in with 100 songs ready to rock and leaving 90 of them on the floor.
Well, another really cool thing about it, I mean, it's there was a part that I found where it said before they started filming Purple Rain, Prince did a charity concert at First Avenue, which was the basically the venue that it kind of works around, and it says it took live performances and recordings of Purple Rain, Die for You, and Baby I'm a Star, and used those direct
Yeah, that's
live
amazing.
recordings, brought those into the studios, did a couple overdubs, and that was the thing. So
I had no idea.
mhm.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
no idea. Those
Apparently,
are
you
live
can
tracks
hear
off
the
floor.
crowd in one of the or two
Yeah.
of the songs. Like if you really listen.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know those 3 tracks,
Yep.
and then the rest of them were cut in the warehouse, like next door
Right.
with the Revolution. But and then I also learned too that Revolution only appear on 5 out of 9 of these tracks on this album. So they do say the Revolution, but they're not on all these songs,
Right.
which is kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, it was
But
at the
I can't
point.
imagine what it must have been like being in the Revolution.
Oh, unreal.
Yeah, I was just saying like to be able to make that band, and then the amount of pressure there must be in that band working with that guy during that time.
I don't think there was a ton of pressure though, because Prince was so on with choosing his musicians. Like everyone was perfect, and you look at every song. Basically, every song he's ever done was perfect. Even like the music was perfect. Everyone was tight. Everyone was brilliant with it. Even the loose songs where it had, his really rough, stretched, strained vocals, everything else around it was still bang on. Like his band was tight. Always.
The Revolution guy they interviewed, he said that they would rehearse 7 hours a day just on music.
Yep.
And he said that if Prince caught you with like a free hand or like a free limb and you weren't playing, like if you were playing keyboard with your right hand, he'd be like, fatten the part up, play left hand keyboard, play something else. So just like crack the whip and let's go. Right? Like it was a little bit of a boot camp, they said. So recording all that was
that much brilliance demands perfection, and that's a huge thing.
Well, I think that this album too, like, makes him, like, solidifies him as like that. He kind of takes the next step into like the guitar god realm of being able to really establish himself as an unbelievable guitar player,
which is also huge. Yeah,
even after the first track. Mm-hmm. Yeah, after Let's Go Crazy and that guitar solo at the end of Let's Go Crazy, and that ending is just, I think that's like, it sets the tone for the whole thing, and that whole opening too with the organ and like Dearly Beloved, just like
Well, he's such an underrated guitar player too. I mean, he should always be on a top 10 list of some sort. It's just, and nobody thinks of him as a guitar player. I'm surprised that he's not more well known for it.
I guess it's hard if you're not. I mean, you think of how bands are sort of marketed towards their audiences, and I think Prince was more of a producer performer, and he wasn't just guitar. Like there were so many other things about him, and that's kind of what made him like the mystery. Like, who is Prince? Is he a guitar player? Is he a singer? Is he like? That was always my sort of like, I was really sort of confused with Prince for the most part. Like I knew he made some awesome songs. But I couldn't really like categorize him or like pigeonhole him into something,
Right. Well, the first couple, or the first X amount of years, and I guess he put out an album every year. Prior to that, except for when Purple Rain came out, he ended up skipping 83 because they were doing the movie. But yeah, so I mean, every year prior to that, he had an album a year, and for the most part, he was, I don't know, very, people kind of, I guess they kind of saw him as very effeminate, it was very funk based, and as soon as you get into like, what was it? 1999 came out before this, right?
Before that.
So he did that, and then this was a different sort of a show off, I guess, of his skills and his writing or whatever.
Well, and he had definitely the Revolution with him too. Yeah, and allowed him to like allow other people to bring in their stuff too, right? Like a lot of this stuff is Prince's stuff in Purple Rain, but a lot of it is collaboration with the band, which is something he never did before this whole thing.
Not as much, Well, even with 1999,
Yeah,
I
but
sent
like-
you that link to that new podcast that I found.
What's the
They've
name of
got,
the podcast,
what is
Mike?
it, 6 or 7 episodes now.
Mm.
And they were
really?
1999 Prince. Yeah, it's pretty simple. I found it on Spotify here about a week ago, and I don't know how many part of a series, but it just focuses directly on that session of recording and everything that was involved in 1999. So it was very cool. I've only caught the first 2 episodes, but it's straight from Paisley Park and everyone that's around that. It's an official podcast of it, because I guess they're putting out some new super deluxe edition of it. So they're trying to give you background and get that going. So
Yeah. I think too, like in this, I think it's kind of genius. Even these guys that, and I'm sure we can probably name a
Yep.
few in history that do their own soundtracks and star in
Oh,
their own
yeah.
movies, right? Like the first one that comes to mind is Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right? Like that guy has made movies and done the soundtrack and cashed in on both sides of that, right? Whereas, like Prince basically did the exact
Yeah.
same thing, or, some of these bands that even, spoiler alert to the singles, like those bands are in that movie, right? Like they're in there. So, it's interesting to have the cameo and to
Right,
be
right.
the main character in this movie, and to,
Mhm.
oh, by the way, I provided the soundtrack for the whole thing too. It's kind of genius, especially at that time.
It's been a while. I haven't watched the movie in a while, but does Prince play Prince in the movie?
it's basically a life story for the most part, a loosely whatever.
Right. So like yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he plays the
okay.
kid. The kid is like the rising star that basically in the end
Yeah.
relents and lets his other bandmates come up with some ideas and input, and
Right.
he flourishes under that basically. But there's a whole bunch of like relationship and suicide stuff in there. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Because it's interesting, Mike, that you said that, because I was thinking like Elvis, but he always played a character, like he was some
Definitely.
race car driver or something weird like that.
Yeah.
But, in this example, Prince is playing himself, I guess, from what you tell me.
Yeah.
And it's more of like an expression that it goes beyond just like him recording music. It's like, here's my movie.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, and that's a good point, Dane, too. I totally forgot about Elvis. Right? Like that's Colonel Tom Parker's peddling that. Like, you're gonna make a movie and come
Yeah.
out with a soundtrack. Like, I'm gonna get 2 things out of you, right? On every single time
Right.
we do this.
And it's all fucking fake
yeah.
stuff. Like, can you imagine if Elvis like was just himself in those movies? And
Yeah, not a race car driver. This is supposed to be a double album, too. I didn't know that. Well, it makes not a big surprise, obviously, when you have 100 tracks coming to the table, and probably want to pull out 24 of those. Again, I don't know whatever happened to those other 90. I'm sure that, like you said, they're available in the vault sessions that he's got coming out every week.
all the stuff that he never wanted to come out
Yeah,
until
double
after
album.
he died, and then everyone was like, F it, let's just put it all out. So he was so anti all of that. I mean, if he didn't
it's funny how that goes with
specifically
those.
want to put it
artists
out,
like
it
that.
didn't come out, and now everybody's just trying to make their extra money off of it. So
It was funny because I was even looking at like some of those tracks on some of these soundtracks. I noticed that a lot on Spotify too. They're grayed out.
yeah,
So I'm trying to find out like why some of these songs are grayed out in Spotify, right? And I was looking at this one site. It was like from 2016. It was all these artists that were not on Spotify and like the reasons why. And I was like, and one of them came down to Purple Rain, and I'm like,
Right.
no, like in 2020, Purple Rain is available on Spotify. So something happened there, right? Like, but some of those tracks are grayed out.
yeah, I keep finding a lot of that
Interesting. And
too.
again, to this same thing on the singles soundtrack. Not all those tracks are on there.
oh yeah, I know why for at least a couple of the bands, but I think it has something to do with the estate. where there's like issues with the estate, and you know, with a full album, that's fine, but individual songs that might make money, you know, otherwise, you know, they can just gray it out.
Yeah.
So that's the super interesting thing about Spotify is that
sweet.
it's almost like, as far as like the audio tracks, it's like a living version of the audio tracks. Because I've even heard of like Kanye West like taking back songs, remixing some stuff and putting it back up.
Yeah.
And you don't have the original anymore. It's like this living track that, you know, if
Yeah.
the artist
You
chooses.
have individual control.
Yeah,
over it.
exactly. Yeah.
It's like a working document.
Yeah. So, I mean, who knows? I would
Right.
imagine it's like the estate, Prince's estate saying like, nope, gray it out.
Thought it was interesting too. I found that track first, then the movie came out. So like soundtrack came out a month earlier.
1 month earlier.
So they just let that go while it was doing its thing and try to promote that, and then the movie came out. So they said that like by the time movie came out, everybody knew all these tracks.
Yeah.
Like it was just like
Well, that kind of makes sense too, because you want to be able to push the movie, right? So,
smart. It's smart.
yep.
You know, like, oh wow, I know all these tracks. Like, you know, how do they fit into this movie? Like, it's genius. Really.
Well, it wasn't even that too. I mean, prior to he wasn't as big of a household name, you know.
No.
But before this movie and after that, this is what brought him into the next level. I mean, this album gave him his first 2 #1 singles with Dove's Cry and Let's Go Crazy were his very first #1s that he ever had, and Purple Rain only got to #2. So
Yeah, but I mean, overall, this thing is, you know,
right,
24 weeks at #1.
yep,
24 weeks is, you know, that's insane, right? But yeah, no, this is kind of the album that takes him into the next dimension of, you know, who he becomes eventually. But and I think too, I don't know, I guess for me personally, there's a side of that like I guess I like that
Mhm.
glam side, that kind of, you know, of rock and of that, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, I guess I like the peacock on stage. Like, I like
extra
somebody
show.
who is flamboyant and has gone over the top to like
Mhm.
do this. Like, and it's, yeah, like, I don't know. I kind of like that. And if it's not like contrived and really, you know, not organic, then it kind of feels forced. But like something
Yep.
like that, I don't know. It was just like sometimes you see some of those pictures of Prince and you're like, so cool, man. Like, it's just,
Sexy.
you know, some of those album covers and
Yep.
some of that stuff. Like, I think some of that vinyl that I have
Yep.
with him, like on the bed,
Sell the
like,
sex, yep.
just, you know, like the blanket just barely covering his ass. Like, it's just like so, yeah, just arched back,
Yep.
right? It just
Yep.
like, you know, and then the other side's got like the tear, just like the one tear, you know, coming down. It's classic.
I didn't know you were such a Prince fan, Mike.
Yeah, I just went backwards on it, and then I saw him in concert, and then that was it. Like, I was blown away by. I mean, I had really liked Prince before that, but when I saw him in concert, kind of goes back to what you were talking about, Dane, about being what he is and like what genre is he and what can he do, because, you know, he just would go out there for, you know, 10 minutes and he would just be on the piano and the synthesizer
Yep.
and just lay down all of his, like, all these hits in a medley. And he'd be like, I got too many hits, everybody. I got too many hits. And he'd just like go to the next song and like go into it. And the only time I saw him in the Coliseum, and like
Mhm.
he was just jamming, and he just like turned off all the lights. He got the guys to turn off all the lights in the Coliseum, like everything. So it's just like pitch dark in there. Everybody's just grooving. The band's just cooking on stage, and he's just like ripping this guitar solo off one of the sides of his stage. And I'm like, this is for real, man. Like, this
Yeah.
guy, this is a show. Like, this was and then when he played Purple Rain, and all the purple confetti's getting shot out of the cannons and stuff, right? And it's just like he's into his solo. I don't know, man. It was just it kind of put the the cherry on top for him, because I actually saw him in concert and saw what he was able to do live, and I guess that's kind of put me into the next dimension with him,
Right.
That, but yeah, again, when I listen to Purple Rain, it's front to back for me. There's no skips on there.
At
It's
all.
a solid album.
And that's one of the few
No skips.
full albums that I never skip a song, and it's a very rare thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially for a soundtrack, too. I find, right? I don't know. I think it hit at the right time too, right? Like, I think the whole timing of all of this as well, right? Like, disco is dead, it's just all these different things. Pop is bland at the time. Punk rock can't figure out what it's doing between, mainstream or underground. And here comes Prince, somewhere kind of in the middle. And there's a little bit of all of that in there, right? There's a little bit of punk. There's a little bit of funk. There's a little bit of rock.
Yep.
There's a lot of 80s, but it's not, when you listen to that album, you don't necessarily
sound
think the
80s.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think it does. Like,
Yeah, it
yes,
didn't get locked
sounds
in
like
the
it was
time
made
capsule.
in the 80s.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it a little more timeless for me.
Yeah, definitely.
And the very last thing, I don't know if you guys ever knew this, but when I was working at Axe Music
Yeah.
back in the day, there was Prince came to
Yep.
Jubilee,
No way.
Mhm.
and I never went to this show, but he played at the Jubilee, and apparently he came to Axe Music and was playing.
I read about it,
At
but I
Axe
missed
Music,
it completely.
like,
Unfortunately,
Right. So the guy that I worked for called me, apparently, and wanted me to come down and see Prince.
Oh,
man.
And I didn't answer the phone, didn't get nothing. So I found out after the fact. He was like, yeah, man, if you would
Crazy.
answer your phone, you would have come here. You could have seen Prince.
Crazy.
Why didn't you answer your phone?
Like, all right. I don't know, man. This is like, I don't even know if I had a cell phone then. Like, I think this is maybe our house phone. Like, that's when it was. Like,
Mhm.
I think it was like
That
first
shit
year
was on
university,
silent.
second year university kind of
Oh,
time,
man.
right? So I don't even know if I had a working phone. Oh yeah, guaranteed. It was a brick in my bag.
Wow.
So yeah, no, I missed out on that. But again, I got a chance to see him in concert. And that was cool.
Yep.
So yeah, that's kind of my. And then I went backwards on all that Prince stuff, kind of up to that point. So I was a backwards fan that way, and then jumped into the rest of his stuff later. So
Yeah, I was definitely late to the show on that one for Prince. I mean, I remember the main hits, watching it on music videos and whatnot, and then I remember the Batman soundtrack for sure. And then I didn't really get into it I kind of left it aside. Nothing really grabbed me with it too much at the time, because just being the age. And then around 99, I think it was 99, hooked up with a buddy of mine, and he was a huge Prince fan. Like, he had everything. He had all the original vinyl, like everything. Crazy singles, crazy box sets, crazy whatever. And he got me super involved into it. So, yeah, and he got me into that, and then it was just a total rewind. Okay, start from the beginning, and kind of gorge yourself, binge everything, and take it on that way. So, but from there on, I was hooked completely. So,
yeah, you were listening in '99 when they were playing 1999 in the bar, like
Yep.
nonstop that year.
Oh, I don't care.
Remember that? It was
I
like
don't care.
yes, I get
party
it.
like it's
Yes, I
19
understand.
Y2K.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
hilarious.
You're all gonna die in the year 2000.
The Batman soundtrack
But,
was. Oh, sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
No, carry on.
That tape was amazing. I had that tape. That movie was like I think that was one of the first Marvel. I'm
DC.
probably. Oh, sorry, DC.
DC, come on, man.
Yeah, whew, I should know this. I'm sorry. It probably wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh,
Look
yeah.
at you.
You're getting
Ooh, I'm
ripped on
not-
all social
Legion
media
of
for that
fans.
now. All
Hi,
your
I'm Dane.
followers
I'm
are
not a
ripping you.
nerd.
No, I most definitely am. But
Yeah.
what was I talking about? Oh, that
Batman.
was a great tape. That was a great album. I remember being very young and listening to that in my garage as a kid, and just like
Yep.
pumping it. But my love for Prince didn't go much further than that for some reason. I just
Mhm.
couldn't figure him out. I couldn't get it. And it wasn't like, I think a lot of people are, I'm just going to go forward with this. Like a lot of people are like, was he gay? Was he not? Like he was obviously
Yep.
like a Christian. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of Little Richard, right? Like this
Yep.
very, extravagant, very talented musician. And I never really figured out Little Richard either. I mean, he said he invented rock and roll. I don't think so. But as far as
I think so.
okay.
100%. 100%.
100%. That's another episode right there.
This is another
Let's
episode waiting
put
to
that
happen
on the list of notes to do list.
As far as Prince, I think for me, my parents loved Michael Jackson, as I'm
Yep.
sure a lot of families loved Michael Jackson, and I think that was like the source of confusion for me. It was like, is this guy is he kind of like a Michael Jackson character, or is he
Right.
something different? And
Right.
like maybe I just never took the time to sort of figure out who he was. I just kind of like, okay, well, he made a good, album that was like the Batman album, and after that, I don't like, and I probably missed out on a lot, but I have to say I did dance to a lot of Prince at the bars when I was
Mhm.
younger. I mean, if a Prince song came on, I was dancing to it. So, I mean, he did
Yep.
something right for sure. But
Yeah, that's one of the few concerts that I ever danced at. Like when you're like dancing, you're just like dancing like to the band that when because all the lights are off and nobody can see you.
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
almost like maybe he does it on purpose and nobody can see you, and you just like go to town, man.
Was that show after we saw Santana?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it was.
So
after we
so
saw
I
Santana,
saw you
yeah.
dance your ass off to Santana. So
Yeah, man. Well, nobody else
nobody
was.
else was. It was like 4 people in the entire Coliseum that were dancing until Smooth came on. Smooth, and
Yeah,
then
until Big Hit
the
came on,
entire
and then-
place just blew up. The one song they knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's a pet peeve for me in live concerts.
one
when
song.
that happens, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's the hater in me. I just can't stand it when those songs come on. Everybody's like, just storms the
Yeah.
stage, goes crazy, and you're like,
Yeah,
man, this is
yeah.
the one I should go to the bathroom for.
one of 3 songs that they know of his entire catalog. Yeah, and it's a new song that came out 2 years earlier.
Oh, come on. You're not a super fan.
Don't wear the band T-shirt.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy. Don't
Go
wear the
see-
band T-shirt. Don't be that guy. Go
P-Funk.
buy the shirt and wear it at the show. Don't be that guy. No, man, I've never done that. Have you ever done that? Good. That's why you're.
Except for my very
buddy.
first concert that was Ozzy Osbourne, and I bought the shirt there, but that was different. I didn't show up to the show with it on, so
That's all right. That's a.
yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Just to show that you've been there. I've seen
Yeah.
these guys before, man.
Saw him
I
5
saw
times. I
last
saw him
year.
1984
You
on
didn't.
This was the best tour ever tour.
And going back to that too, that pub where it was recorded at, that First Avenue pub.
Yep.
You were talking about.
Yep.
That's right next door to the their studio.
Oh, cool.
So Prince would be like, because again, he wasn't super big, but like him and the Revolution be up all night doing stuff or whatever, and he'd go to the bar and he'd be like, "Hey man, I want to try these like 4 tracks
Sweet.
out tonight." And whoever was there before social media, so it was like if you weren't there, nobody really knew
Yeah.
that Prince was on stage
Yeah.
laying down these tracks, right?
Mhm.
But he was, and yeah, thought that was kind of cool too. The Purple Rain too. They said I read it was originally like a country song.
Really?
Almost. The Revolution thought it was like a country track, and it was like 11 minutes long. Prince wanted
Wow.
Stevie Nicks on there. Yeah, so he gave Stevie Nicks the track, and she was like, "This is 11 minutes long.
Yeah.
I can't do this. I'm no, not gonna happen." So, yeah, that it never obviously materialized, but yeah, Computer Blue. Again, I just think of all these tracks too, and I always associate them with the Chappelle Show too, right? Like, when,
You
with the
can't not
different,
after seeing that.
you
yeah.
know, yeah, the basketball plays, right?
Pancakes.
Like,
Darling Nikki,
Darling
Computer
Nikki, yeah,
Yeah.
Computer Blue. It's just always what I think of when that happens. But yeah, so again, this is, you can kind of tell like these tracks that are just Prince, like When Doves Cry, Darling Nikki, The Beautiful
Damn.
Ones. And then if you look at some of these disc 2,
Yep.
these like unreleased ones from the vault, again, like highly sexualized, right? Like Love and Sex, Wonderful Ass, Weak
Yeah,
and Fuck.
yeah.
These are all songs off of this like disc 2, right? So Electric Intercourse, like all these songs did not make the cut, right? Yeah. And you know, obviously Darling Nikki is highly sexualized as well, and this was the reason why the album got the parental
Advisories
advisory
and,
sticker in the first place, right? Because
Yep.
of what this entire song is about. So yeah. Again, I'm just doing a fast kind of run through on these, but When Doves Cry, that was my first video that I ever saw Prince the first time. Because I don't think, is Prince in Batman? Does he make a cameo at
He's
all?
not
No,
in the movie. No.
does not.
Yeah, so like I never knew what he
Yeah.
looked like, or like never knew anything about him, right? So, and again, before the internet, how
Well,
do
the
you
thing
know?
with the thing with
Yeah.
the Batman
Like,
soundtrack
I
too,
do.
from what I understand, is that they just gave him a ton of money and said, "Do this album and basically do whatever you want." And he's like, "Yeah, okay, I'll take your money," kind of thing. But he wasn't really interested in the idea, or didn't really have anything behind it.
Yeah, because he had 100 tracks ready to go in the vault. And he was
Exactly.
like, "Oh, I'll just pick these.
Doesn't even matter.
I'll
Okay.
just change this one to Bat. I'll put a bat in the title.
Yeah.
And it'll just be good enough."
Yeah, we'll do Bat Dance, and we'll do
Bat
Trust,
Dance.
and we'll do Party Man. And
Yeah.
so good.
Oh,
Vicky
Trust
Waiting
is
was a
such a
hard
good
one to
song.
listen to, but Future was kick ass. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, there's a bunch on there that are good. And I always liked it too that the bat symbol was cut off on the album. I thought it
Yeah.
was like, when I was a kid, I thought it was like a mistake. I was like, "Oh, is that like a rare
Yeah.
one? Is that like a special edition?" But I don't know. I always thought it was kind of badass that the bat symbol was cut off on the album.
Yeah. Do you think there was a reason behind that, Mike?
I don't know.
Huh. I remember that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, going back, I love "I Would Die for You." That song is in my top 5 for Prince songs. I don't know what it is about that song. I think it's a classic Prince, epitome of Prince song. "Baby I'm a Star" is and again "Purple Rain" back to back. This "Baby I'm a Star" almost didn't again make it on this album. So this is another again track that he kind of reworked the live recording on it, and then he added all the overdubs and stuff after the fact. But yeah, and then "Purple Rain," again going back to that live show, kind of having a little bit of a moment with that song, and it was probably like 15 minutes long, 20 minutes long in concert, just with all the solos and stuff, right? So he's kind of a jam band. The band he had with him, I mean, it's just like, super jammy, but it was kind of cool too at the time, just kind of going back on this last couple things, like the Revolution. I mean, having a multi-gender, a multiracial backing band for, and having a lead female guitar player
Yeah.
back in 1984
rare.
was a huge deal, right? It would be a
Definitely,
big deal
yep.
now, but for Prince to do that back in the day. And again, maybe that probably added Dane to his whole like,
Yep.
who is this guy? Like, he doesn't have a full band of
Yeah.
dudes
Yeah.
backing him up like the whole time. Like, just a
Yeah.
little bit more androgynous that way, right? And I kind of see where you're coming from on that, but yeah, I don't know. That's kind of, I guess, some of the allure for me.
All right, that's it for episode 5. Thanks for hanging out with us. Please subscribe and comment on our YouTubes. Follow, like, and share on Instagram at B-Sides and Beers Podcast. Follow on the Spotify. Subscribe, rate, share, Apple Podcast, pretty much every other streaming platform. Thanks a lot. Cheers.